My name is Donna Lynch, and I'm with the Resource Center for Family Focused Practice, and I will be facilitating this morning's webinar. We are so happy to have Kelly Bazzani here with us today, and we will be talking about all things substance abuse. All right, with that, it is, I was going to say it was 12:02, but it's definitely 9:02. Kelly and I were just talking about, we're just happy we're upright this morning on this Friday. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for this important conversation. I would like to highlight some housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on our website within the next few weeks, so please look out for that. So if you have anybody who wasn't able to join us this morning, it will be posted and it will be available to view at a later time. Along with that, all of the documents and resources dropped during today's session will be available along with the recording with a PDF version. I will be dropping the PDF version of the PowerPoint, and Kelly has also provided us with a 17-page handout of resources, which is amazing, that will also be available for you. This webinar is brought to you in collaboration with the California Department of Social Services, the Family Center Practice Unit, along with us here at the Resource Center for Family Focused Practice. I'm always thrilled to bring these webinars, particularly for our peer partner community, but everyone else who is here with us today, with my colleague, Kayla Granderson. Kayla, I think, is off today, but she sends her love and appreciation for all of you joining us here. With that, today we are exploring strategies for supporting youth in ways that foster trust, resilience, and meaningful relationships. We know that adolescence is a time of curiosity, identity formation, and sometimes risk-taking, including with substance abuse. Research tells us that 82% of adolescents hesitate to confide in a trusted adult because of their fear of judgment, punishment, or having their feelings dismissed. That's why today's discussion is so crucial. Instead of just acknowledging behavior, we must validate emotions to create an open and trusting dialogue with young people that we serve. We are honored to have Kelly Bazzani as our featured speaker. Kelly is a certified master life coach dedicated to destigmatizing mental health and promoting emotional wellness. She has been recognized among the top 10 resilience coaches by the Coach Foundation, awarded Best Life Coaching by Style Magazine for 4 consecutive years, and was recently named Top Instructor and Mental Health Advocate of the Year by the International Association of Top Professionals. Her work is deeply rooted in mentorship, transformation, and advocacy, empowering individuals to find inner strength and lasting freedom. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge that policies and procedures may vary across counties and organizations. If you have specific questions related to youth and families in your area, please consult your leadership for guidance. And finally, Kelly does appreciate questions during her presentation. So if you have any questions, please use your raise your hand feature or come off mute during, or you can pop your question in chat and I will ask it for you. With that, I am honored to pass the baton over to Kelly Bazzani. Thank you, Kelly.
Good morning. Good morning. I am super, super excited. Thank you, Donna. I'm honored to be with everybody this morning on this Friday. It is Friday though, so we will get through this and then everybody can get on with their days. So I am going to get going. Yes, I got a little overzealous with my handouts, but I figured more is better. So please take whatever you need from the handouts and share it with yourselves, with your community, with your other peer partners. But I figured whatever we don't get to today, you can take and just have, right? And so we are going to go fast and furious today. And so that's why I said I welcome questions throughout. So I can only see so many of you when I'm presenting. So please just use your raise your hand feature if you have a question, and I will get to you right away. But I feel that we need to set everything up really well and start with substance use into trauma and then why that's going to lead to connection. So more importantly than what Donna talked about with my credentials, which yes are important, so you know I'm qualified to be doing this training with you this morning. More importantly than that, I come from lived experience. So I'm with all of you there. I have 17 years sober and I have 10 years clean. And so that's why it is really important for me to say that why this topic is so important, because the reason why I got so lost in my addiction is because I lost my purpose. And when I lost my purpose, I just went down that rabbit hole of addiction. And so we're going to talk today about why it's so important for our kiddos to not only reconnect with themselves and find their intrinsic purpose, find some goals, but connect with their community, connect with you, connect back to some community resources, and just find connection in general. Okay. So I'll share a little bit about myself throughout the training. I hope you share a little bit with me, and let's have some fun this morning. Any questions before we get started? Okay. And let
I
me
don't
check.
see any yet, Kelly.
All right, all right. And let's see. We have San Bernardino, Placer County, Meg. That's where I'm from. Excellent, excellent. Solano. I just want to see who I'm working with. Riverside. Excellent. LA, Napa. I was just in Napa. Excellent. Monterey, Yuba. Okay. Yolo, Mendocino, all over. Sac County. Excellent. Okay, so let's see what magic we can work around this state. So I am going to share my screen and let's get into it. And you guys don't need to read my email, so let's get going on here. And let's start from the beginning. Okay, so we are going to do the importance of connection and finding a purpose. So we're going to do our trauma-informed approach. All right, so let's get moving. So I am going to start with a little video that I think is just going to set us up really good. Oh my goodness. Set us up really good. And it would help if we had sound. So let me start again. And let me exit out. Give me a second, you guys. My
Kelly,
computer.
when you're sharing at the bottom, it'll say for optimal sound, there'll be a button for you.
I know. My computer is just really wonky this morning, and it must be the Friday blues. Okay.
We're putting the rat in an empty cage.
1 second, you guys. Let me come back to you. And let's try this again. My Lord. Okay, so let's try this one more time.
Almost everything we think we know about addiction is wrong.
And we still don't have sound, do we?
We did. Kelly, we did.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes,
all right.
ma'am.
You can hear it?
No, we did before. I don't know what you did.
My goodness. Thank you for your patience on this Friday.
It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting if technology
Oh
did
my
not
God.
go awry. Come
I
on.
tell you what, I tell you what. Okay, let's try this again.
Wrong.
How about
The
now?
idea of addiction we've all got in our heads, that
Yes.
story, comes
All right.
partly from a series of experiments that were done earlier in the 20s.
Now
Kelly, are you
no video.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? We're going to skip it, and I'm just going to talk about it.
You know what? Why don't you send me the link and I'll work with James on the back end and maybe we can get it to get going
I
for
don't
you.
know. I apologize, you guys. I don't know what is going on with my.
It's all right. I'll look in the PowerPoint for you. You keep going, ma'am.
Okay,
I got it.
I'm just gonna.
And
pull
they can
up
have loads of
my
sex.
PowerPoint.
And they've got
1 second.
both
Give
the
me
water
1 second.
bottles, the normal
It's working
water
now.
and the drugged water.
Oh,
I'm still just gonna keep. I can't see anything on my end. My computer is just so weird right now. Give me 1 second, you guys. I am so sorry. I don't know what is happening on my end. Can you see that? I don't know what is happening.
I don't see anything. Would you like James to share the PowerPoint for you, Kelly?
No, I can't see you guys. I can't see anything right now. So hold on. James, can you remove the spotlight, please? Thank you. Like my video isn't even on. I don't even know what's happening right now. So give me a second.
Snacks would keep us calm for now.
This is crazy.
Danny, straight facts, right?
This is crazy. Okay. Now we're back, but I can't see my chat. There we go. Okay. Now I can't see I can't see you guys. I can either see the chat or my PowerPoint.
Go up to your view button on the top right. Click that and maybe you can change options there.
Mhm. That is so smart, Karen. Yes. So, you might need to, it'll say show the participants or show,
Hide meeting.
And
Okay, I can either do show meeting or hide meeting.
and if it says full screen, do not click full screen because that'll put the chat right in the middle of your screen.
Yeah, I can either see you guys or see my PowerPoint. This is so weird.
Well, Zoom is crazy. And
I
it does what it
know.
wants.
This is not working for me. Okay,
What you
we're
could
just
do
gonna
is
go. We're just gonna go. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
go and come back.
Yeah,
you
so Donna,
do
let
that.
me send you the. I'm gonna log out and log back in is what I'm gonna do.
that's all right. And then, James is gonna go ahead and play the video because I sent him the link. So as you're clicking out and clicking back in, we're gonna play the video for you.
Perfect. Okay.
Awesome.
You guys
Okay. Teamwork. All right, James. Thank you all for being patient. Zoom has been a monster this week.
So this is a little interesting. The video is giving an interesting error message. I wonder if that affected her.
Let me try. Let's see if I can do it.
It started, but we can't hear it.
Here we go. All right, let's try this again.
Almost everything we think we know about.
I've got it. James, let
All
me
right.
share screen. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Okay, let's do this.
Hold on, Kelly. I'm going to share.
Okay.
Okay. Let me know if everyone can hear it and see it. I need a thumbs up.
That addiction is wrong. The idea of addiction we've all got in our heads, that story, comes partly from a series of experiments that were done earlier in the 20th century. You get a rat and you put it in a cage and you give it 2 water bottles. One is just water and the other is water laced with either heroin or cocaine. The rat will almost always prefer the drug water and almost always kill itself quite quickly. In the 70s, Bruce Alexander, professor of psychology in Vancouver, comes along and he looks at this experiment and he noticed something. He said, we're putting the rat in an empty cage. It's got nothing to do except use these drugs. Let's try something a bit different. So Professor Alexander built a cage that he called Rat Park, which is basically heaven for rats, right? They've got loads of cheese, they've got loads of colored balls, they've got loads of tunnels. Crucially, they've got loads of friends, they can have loads of sex, and they've got both the water bottles, the normal water and the drugged water. But here's the fascinating thing. In Rat Park, they don't like the drugged water. They almost never use it. None of them ever use it compulsively. None of them ever overdose. You go from almost 100% overdose when they're isolated to 0% overdose when they have happy and connected lives. What if addiction isn't about your chemical hooks? What if addiction is about your cage? What if addiction is an adaptation to your environment? This has really significant implications. The most obvious implications are for the war on drugs, right? We punish addicts, we shame them, we give them criminal records, we put barriers between them reconnecting. Now, there's a place that decided to do the exact opposite, and I went there to see how it worked. In the year 2000, Portugal had one of the worst drug problems in Europe. So one day, the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition got together, set up a panel of scientists and doctors to figure out what would genuinely solve the problem. And they came back and they said, decriminalize all drugs, from cannabis to crack. But, and this is the crucial next step, take all the money we used to spend on cutting addicts off, on disconnecting them, and spend it instead on reconnecting them with the society. But the biggest thing they did was the complete opposite of what we do. A massive program of job creation for addicts and microloans for addicts to set up small businesses. And when I went and met the addicts in Portugal, it was fascinating. What they said is, as they rediscovered purpose, they rediscovered bonds and relationships with the wider society, and the results are in. Injecting drug use is down in Portugal, according to the British Journal of Criminology, by 50%. Overdose is massively down. HIV is massively down among addicts. Addiction in every study is significantly down. We talk all the time in addiction about individual recovery, and it's right to talk about that. But we need to talk much more about social recovery. We created a society where for a lot of us, life looks a whole lot more like that isolated cage and a whole lot less like Rat Park. What I try to do now, and I can't tell you I do it consistently, and I can't tell you it's easy, is to say to the addicts in my life that I want to deepen the connection with them, to say to them, I love you, whether you're using or you're not. And if you need me, I'll come and sit with you because I love you and I don't want you to be alone or to feel alone. And I think the core of that message, you're not alone, we love you, has to be at every level of how we respond to addicts, socially, politically, and individually. Because the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Excellent. And thank you all for your patience. And so I'd like to ask everybody, and you can take yourselves off mute or you can put it in the chat. How do you feel that this video is going to be relevant to today's discussion? Any ideas? I want to get your beautiful minds moving on today's topic.
I was thinking about what you had shared about how you had lost your purpose, and and as teens, we really are all over the place with our hormones raging. We don't have prefrontal cortex online. You know, we're kind of a walking mess. And so to help a teen identify and connect with and find their purpose to prevent.
Excellent, Karen. Absolutely, right? Especially if we have trauma and we have detachment or trust or problems with authority, helping them reconnect with a purpose that's important to them and socially is going to be really important. Yeah? Okay. And I saw somebody put in the chat, it's the centerpiece of what we're going to talk about. Absolutely, Meg. The power of connection. Yes, Jessica. Important to find a purpose and assist those to find their purpose. Yes, Maria. Romana, hit me up. What do you got?
In my situation, it was different, and I don't know if this is it affects differently. If you have mental illness, it just throws a whole other wrench. And in the situation with my son, it wasn't that he didn't have the family connections. He was surrounded by it, but he still became an addict, you
Yes.
know, and it was because the mental illness never let him feel that he belonged anywhere.
Yes, or connected to himself, Romana, and we're going to talk about that. The co-occurring disorders. Over half of adolescents are either going to have one or the other, a co-occurring disorder, a mental illness, or a substance use disorder at one point or another in their life. So important that we're going to talk about today, Romana. Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so this is going to kind of set us up for what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so let me try to see if this will work for me.
Come on.
Da-da-da! Okay, so let's, oh my gosh, okay. So let's start from the beginning.
You
and we're gonna
got it, ma'am.
right
There we
on over
go.
this one, right on over this one. Okay, so I would like for you guys to, again, type in the chat, or how would you define substance use disorder? It's so broad, right? So it's so broad. So we have, I put in here for you guys a couple. According to the NIDA, right, which is the National Institute on Drug Abuse, we have a chronic relapsing brain disease that's characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite harmful consequences. Then we have, according to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, an inability to consistently abstain, impairment in behavioral control. Yes, 50%, Diana. Isn't that crazy? Diminished recognition of significant problems, a dysfunctional emotional response. And then we have a cluster of cognitive, behavioral, and physiological symptoms indicating that the individual continues using the substance despite significant substance-related problem. That's SAMHSA's. So we have 3 different definitions of what substance use disorder can be. Meg says a need to feel differently from current emotional state because of lack of more effective skills to regulate emotions. Beautiful, right? And I have another one I'm going to throw in, right? And this is just years of lived experience too, that addiction isn't just substance use, right? I kind of am going with where Meg's going down that path, right? Yes, and Paula, I'm going where Paula's going too. It's behaviors that are used to self-soothe things that we can't control. Okay, so at its core, addiction is soothing and avoidance. Yeah, Diana, the disease of separating. What are we separating from? Either feelings, right? We don't want to feel a certain way. We want to separate from a situation that's uncomfortable, escape the current situation, Brianna. Excellent, right? So a desire to avoid deep pain, maybe feelings of unworthiness. So it becomes destructive because the soothing creates more shame. And so we get this temporary dissociation or this numbness or this distraction, but afterwards we feel this internal repulsion and the pain is back, and then that temporary avoidance has faded and we need to face ourselves again. So the primary source of mental illness and addiction is childhood trauma. Now there's other factors that play into this, environmental, socioeconomic, but the primary factor is childhood trauma, okay? So we want to get into this, and how does this look then in the DSM-5? Here's all the criteria that we have, okay? So we use in larger amounts, we're unsuccessful in trying to cut down, when there's excessive times using the drug, and then, you know, here are the, if you meet 0 to 1, there's no diagnosis, right? And so here's, and Donna, if it's okay, I'd love to share this PowerPoint with them too after. I don't know if we're allowed to
It
do
is.
that.
I've been dropping it in the chat. They have the
Excellent.
PDF version. If you are
Excellent.
unable to download it, it will be available with the recording.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, so you guys will have this because I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want to get into kind of the nitty gritty of what we want to talk about. So here's the statistics. And I just wanted to go over this a little bit, that when it comes to mental health, we have adolescents aged 12 to 17. We have 4.8 million experienced a major depressive episode in the past year. So here's where we have the mental illness coming in. Over 1 in 8 adolescents, so that comes to about 3.4 million, had a serious suicidal thought in the past year. So that's going to lead to our co-occurring. And people ask, you know, what came first, kind of the chicken or the egg? Did mental illness lead to the self-suppression using substance use, or are people using substances to the point where it's leading to more anxiety? And that's where I'm saying one leads to the other, over 50%. So That leads to our co-occurring. Then we have the alcohol use. Females aged 12 to 20 may have slightly higher rates of alcohol misuse than males. Higher income levels are linked to increased alcohol and drug use among teens and young adults. Marijuana was the most common illicit drug used by 61.9 million. So that's 22% of those aged 12 and older. And then heroin use, we have low parental education levels that are correlating with an increased risk of heroin use in children. And students that skip school, so truancy, are far more likely to experiment with or become addicted to heroin. And then, of course, we're seeing the fentanyl just rise, right? And especially now it's being laced in marijuana. So it's becoming, and just the minuscule doses are leading to the overdose. And then as you can see in these statistics, so we can just kind of set it up, that almost 50% age 12 and older had a substance use disorder in the past year as compared to 46. So it's rising, okay? And the percentage of people who are classified as having a past substance use disorder was highest for 18 to 25 compared to youth, 26 and older. So it's happening to our younger population. Any questions, comments, concerns about the statistics, just setting it up? All right. So when we look at this, we want to talk about trauma because it's going to have a big impact on why connection is going to be so important here. So what is trauma? When we look at it, we have this emotional response to a distressing or disturbing event, and it's going to overwhelm our capacity to cope, and it's going to lead to these feelings of helplessness, diminished sense of self, difficulties in emotional regulation, and it's going to impact our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So think about it as adults. We've all been through trauma on this Zoom call in one way or another, and think about how it impacts your ability to make decisions or your actions. And then think about how it would be for a kiddo. Okay? So when we look at this, I want to talk about the different types of trauma that our kiddos might be experiencing. Okay? So let's talk about acute trauma. Now, acute trauma would be a single event. So can somebody give me an example of what an acute trauma would be for one of our kiddos? What would be an example of an acute trauma? Absolutely, Karen, 100%. Car accident. Yes, Jessica, death of a family member, car accident. Now, what would be an example then of the physical effect that it would have on a child? What would be a physical effect? Yeah, Ebony, they might get in a fight at school. Now, Renee, avoidance of car rides is a correct answer, but what would that fall under? Physical, emotional, or cognitive? The avoidance. Yeah. The avoidance would be emotional, right? Or cognitive. They might have that exactly, right? Now the child withdraws. What would that be? Physical, emotional, or cognitive? Elizabeth or anybody? Yeah, Brianna, it could tap into all three, all of it, right? So it has all of these effects, emotional, more emotional. Okay, so it's going to have all of these impacts on our adolescents. Okay, and so they stick to their room physically, they stop talking to people, 100%, Elizabeth. Okay, so they could have the physical effects of this could be all of a sudden they're having headaches. So you guys have heard of psychosomatic symptoms, right? So all of a sudden this little kiddo's been in a car accident. They start complaining of headaches, stomach aches, sleep disturbances due to their heightened anxiety, right? So this will stem from their body's stress response, you know, that fight or flight, which becomes activated in an effort to protect itself. So if I'm standing, so the ego doesn't know the difference between real and perceived threat, right? So if I'm standing in front of Renee and I'm a bear and I'm about to bite Renee's head off, that's a real threat, right? So Renee's going to go into that fight, flight, or freeze. Renee's either going to try to fight me because I'm the bear, Renee's going to run from me, or Renee's going to freeze, right? But that car accident, the next time that child gets to a car, that car isn't a real threat, but that baby is going to either try to fight getting in that car, freeze in front of that car, or run from that car, right? Okay. Yeah, nightmares, physical pain in the body, flashbacks, 100%. Okay. So emotionally, that child might fear getting into the vehicle, being near the vehicle, reminders of that traumatic event leading to avoidance behaviors, heightened anxiety. Okay. And then, like, you guys nailed it, intrusive thoughts or flashbacks. It might be difficult for that child to focus on school or other tasks, cognitive processing, and decreased attention span. You guys have got it. Okay. Now, chronic trauma could be repeated events. So give me an example, and you guys can take yourselves off mute too. You don't have to stay silent because I get tired of hearing myself talk. What would be an example of repeated events of chronic trauma?
Physical or emotional abuse.
Absolutely, Brianna. Thank you. Right? So domestic violence, right? Trafficking, drug use. Thank you, Brenda. Ill parent, repeated trips to the hospital. Yes, parents in and out of jail, being displaced. Okay, so with that, what would be the physical, emotional, and long-term neglect? Thank you, Renee. So what would be the physical, emotional, and cognitive impact on our kiddos with that? Oh, Elizabeth, if I had a mic, I'd drop it. Yes, hypervigilance, 100%. What else? Scared. What would be the physical effects besides hypervigilance? Pain. Yeah, chronic pain, extreme preparedness, chronic stress responses, right? Weakened immune system.
Can't sleep.
Hit me up, Jennifer.
Can't sleep.
Yes. Interrupted sleep patterns. Changes in appetite. Delayed growth. Reenacting the chaos. Excellent, Meg. Anxiety. Yes, yes, yes. Right? That would be the emotional too, right? So hit me up with emotional, anxiety, depression, inability to trust people, panic, withdrawal. Excellent, you guys. Right? Persistent feelings of fear, insecurity, PTSD, loneliness. You guys get where I'm going with this, right? Numbing, emotional outbursts. Okay? And then the cognitive development, right? So impaired decision making. They're in survival mode. Okay? Now, give me examples of complex trauma. So there's multiple types of trauma going on at the same time. What would this look like? Give me an example. Abigail, perfect. So an abusive parent passes away and what? Yes, exactly, Elizabeth. So there's a dad in jail and the mom's in the hospital. You see what I'm saying? So there's two types of trauma going on at the same time. Yeah, all of the above, Brenda. Yep. So multiple foster home placements and loss of parents. Excellent. So with that, then what? Physical effects, emotional, and cognitive. And I want to point out when that happens, the physical effects, right? We have developmental delays, delayed motor skills, failure to reach physical milestones, emotionally. This is where we have significant attachment issues, okay? So deep-seated distrust of caregivers or authority figures. And guess what? We're authority figures to them, okay? So they fear betrayal or harm. Yes, 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 yes. Unable to connect. Yes, Lisa. Unable to connect to caregivers, okay? So they may have difficulty identifying and expressing their emotions, leading to outbursts, withdrawals, or inconsistent behavior. It's not personal to us, but this is when those kiddos will get labeled as defiant, oppositional defiant. And it's like, wait a minute, we're diagnosing their symptoms instead of being like, this is where we need the trauma-informed care. Instead of looking at them and saying, what's wrong with you? We need to look at them and say, what happened to you? You see what I'm saying? Okay. So the complex trauma, they may struggle with planning, organizing, regulating their impulses. And that's why it's so important to know what led to their substance use disorder, because these babies need connection more than anybody, not punitive connection. Okay. Questions so far? Because we're leading up to it. We're setting it up to hit it out of the park. Okay.
I do have a quick question.
Please, Ebony.
It for s- Is there any chance that a child that goes through trauma, and I have lived experience,
Yes.
could they possibly get like stuck in a time warp there? Because you know how sometimes they say like the age, the actual age isn't their mental age or emotional age. Can they? Okay, thank you. Please elaborate on that.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, before you even finish. Yes. 100%, Ebony. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to meet them where they are at, right? We might know that, like, oh my gosh, this kid needs to, but we need to meet them where they're at. And I even know that from my own lived experience that when I got sober, I was the mental age of a 14-year-old because that's when I started using. So I had to learn how to do things over again, And so still at 44 years old, I called my mom the other day. I was like, Mom, I just cooked myself a full meal. She's like, oh, good for you, honey. Right. Because I'm learning how to do things again for myself. And it's called reparenting. I'm learning how to reparent myself. And I don't mean that you weren't a wonderful parent, Ebony. I'm just saying there are things I need to learn for myself, healthy coping skills that I never learned for myself. And that's connecting back to me, right? And that's why it needs to be intrinsically motivated. And that's when I talk about if a doctor or a partner or a friend tells you you have to do something, how does it make you feel? Anybody? If someone tells you you have to, yes, Elizabeth.
Anxious.
Right? Anxious, forced. And Brianna, it almost makes me feel a little resentful, right? If a doctor's like, you need to walk every day, you need to lose 20 pounds, I'm like, I'll do it when I'm damn well ready, right? Whereas when you want to do something, it's a different feeling, isn't it? And so that's why I'm going to talk to today when you are helping kids identify what they want, it's intrinsically motivated. It'll be a longer term resolution. Whereas then when you tell kids, you have to stop using drugs, you have to get it together, you have to do this. That's why kids are like, they don't tell trusted adults. Okay. Especially when they've been through trauma. Okay. All right. So exactly. Inadequate. No one believes me. Disempowered, desperate. And then they hold on to what they know, right? Even though they know it might not be a good outcome, Brenda, at least it's familiar, right? Okay. So the key developmental challenges from trauma are emotional regulation issues, distrust, and developmental delays. So right there, you're going to see how important it is there for connection, right? So
It's true, yeah. You would think with, schools.
I'm going to mute Christina. He doesn't sound as fun as me, Christine. Okay, so children who have experienced trauma, whether acute, chronic, or complex, are going to struggle to regulate their emotions. They're going to be quick to anger, overwhelmed by anxiety. And by the way, anger is a really big sign of depression that some people miss, right? And they're going to be emotionally withdrawn. They're going to find it challenging to manage their feelings. Then the distrust, especially when it involves betrayal or lack of safety, okay? And it can lead to profound distrust in others. Children are going to be guarded, reluctant to form connections, and avoidant of relationships, which is going to impact their social development and then those developmental delays. Okay, and this is why we are going to need this trauma-informed care. Okay, so let's take a run through identifying these early signs and symptoms. So I found this really interesting to look at the brain with different mental illnesses, right? With obsessive compulsive, bipolar, and depression. And so common mental disorders by age group, because I think it's really important too to look at it by different age groups. It's not a one and done, like everybody's going to look the same. So whatever kids you're working with, know that it's going to look different for our different kiddos. So young children ages 5 to 10, these are the most common. You're going to see anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, and depression, but it's going to look different. So for our young children, when you're looking at anxiety, PTSD, ADHD, for anxiety, you're going to see excessive worrying, clinginess, physical complaints like stomach aches, avoidance. ADHD, you're going to see the frequent daydreaming, the difficulty following directions. The PTSD, you're going to see bedwetting. That's going to be a really common sign for our young ones. And depression, you're going to see irritability more than sadness in our ages 5 to 10, low energy, changes in eating and sleeping. For our pre-adolescents, excuse me, you're going to see social withdrawal for anxiety. You're going to see difficulty focusing, irritability, sleep disturbances. Substance abuse signs. What do you think the substance abuse signs are going to be in our pre-adolescents? Anyone? Anger, withdrawn? Withdrawn from family activities is going to be a huge one, Jessica. Yes. Sleeping too much. Yes. The secretive behaviors, right? Maybe there's some new unexplained smells. Okay. Hygiene. Yes. Thank you, Emmy. Is it Emmy? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, it's Abby.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, they're going AWOL, Jana, isolation, right? And then when we move into the adolescence, what are going to be the substance abuse signs with our adolescents? So in our pre-adolescence, they start getting some new secretive behavior. They're isolating, hygiene's getting, yeah, Elizabeth, they got the FU attitude, 100%. Property damage. What's going to start happening with their peer groups with substance use signs when they get to adolescence? Yes, Jessica, that's a huge one. Risky behaviors. What's going to happen with the peer groups? Decline grades at school, 100%, Carla. Refusing to do things, yes, Tina. So all of a sudden, me and Danae are like best friends, right? And then I get to adolescence, and all of a sudden my parents are like, well, why aren't you hanging out with Danae anymore? You guys were really good friends. You guys were getting straight A's. And all of a sudden now I'm hanging out with Maria behind the bleachers, and I'm coming home smelling like smoke. Sorry, Maria. I'm sure you're a very, very good girl, right? But yeah, I got a new set of friends now that are strangers, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm getting Amazon free delivery for Visine eye drops. You guys remember the Visine, right? So all of a sudden, I got these bloodshot eyes, right? Yeah, engaging in self-destructive behaviors, risky sex, joyriding. I love it, Meg. Yep, tagging. I love it. You guys are all around my age group. I'm not outdating myself. Yeah, right? So these are things to start looking for, and it's going to just go by age group, okay? And then we want to look at what are people using by age group, right? So our young children are going to start they're going to start by getting really curious about prescription medication because it's the most easily accessible, okay? So they're going to do it either intentionally or accidentally. So painkillers, sleep aids, ADHD medication. So they're going to mistakenly ingest it if it's not properly stored. Is it inhalants or inhalants? I don't know. Is it reversible? But you guys know what I'm talking about. So glue, paint thinners, markers, people were talking about those new Orbeez, you know, that's very sensory for our young kids, okay? So that's going to be their curiosity phase without understanding the risks. And then those nicotine products, it's incidental, but the curiosity is going to lead to that experimentation. And then we're going to move into the pre-adolescent. So when we move into the pre-adolescent, that's when we start getting into the alcohol, okay? And so they're going to be introduced to it through older peers or accessing it through family gatherings. I came from the Roman Catholic Italian family, so my dad had that gallon of jug at the kitchen table. I mean, I was drinking it at 10 at the dinner table, right? And so that curiosity and that peer influence is going to lead to that initial experimentation. Then we have the nicotine and vaping products because among this age group, it's perceived as safer. You notice my air quotes, okay? Then traditional smoking. And then that flavored vaping products is going to make it appealing. And then they've got that cough syrup, you know, they call it the robo-tripping that they can do. And then we move into the adolescence where we have the alcohol is the most commonly used substance. So social events, peer gatherings. Okay, and then it's going to lead to that binge drinking. We move into the cannabis or the marijuana, okay, through vaping, edibles, or smoking, because now the marijuana is being perceived as natural. There's my air quotes again. And then, or non-harmful. Then the nicotine vaping, prescription medications, the Xanax tabs is being, or they're misusing things like ADHD medication, Adderall, or Ritalin to enhance focus or academic performance. Opiates are accessed through friends or family. We have hallucinogens. So people are experimenting now with the magic mushrooms or the psilocybin in search of escape, right? Or inhalants or inhalants, the whippets, for some short-lived euphoric effects. Questions, comments about how the kids, and now, and I didn't add this in here, but kids are accessing drugs through the internet by sending emojis, you know, a fire for heroin, a dragon for heroin, an 8-ball for coke, whatever, and they send it like a Facebook story. You know how Facebook stories disappear after 24 hours? They'll send it to these illegal drug dealers. The illegal drug dealer will get it. It's kind of like a PayPal Venmo. The drug dealer will then send them the price. The kid will Venmo them or do whatever. The story disappears. So the cops can't track it, and the drug dealers will actually send the illegal substance to the child's home. And that is how the children are getting their access. It's just, let me see, press on her neck already. Yeah, Meg, I mean, isn't it crazy? I mean, and you know, Meg, people are drinking the alcohol sanitizer. Yeah, horse emoji and snowman. I mean, it's just getting so cray-cray. It really is. So I'm going to go through, and you guys are not diagnosticians, you're not therapists, you're not anything, but I just want you to be aware that you can even use a couple of these things when you're communicating with our adolescents, okay? So this cognitive behavioral, exactly, Elizabeth, right? Or rolling down a hill, just roll down a hill, right? Hula hoop, do something, skydive like I do now. I just get my natural highs from skydiving. Okay, so this cognitive behavioral therapy, right, is a goal-oriented therapy, and it focuses on identifying and changing negative thought patterns. And so it's used to treat anxiety, depression, and trauma-related symptoms, and it helps individuals reframe and manage their reactions to distressing experiences. So I want to ask you guys, how do you feel that this works with our youth, and how does it link to trauma? If you were to talk to somebody, or you would talk to one of your kiddos using this to help them reframe and manage their reactions to distressing experiences, what do you think? What would be your ideas?
For me, this is Maria T. For me, I'm thinking about my adult children that I went through with this process of substance abuse. I think for me it would have been great to know, and I'm super happy that now we're learning about this now, right? To communicate with other families.
Yeah, wonderful, Maria. Thank you for your vulnerability. This is so important, right? Because and I put scenarios and in for each one of these that we're going to go over, right? So you have a case study for each one of these therapies in there to see what it would look like, what tools you would use, how you would ask questions. Okay, so you have the resource. But how this would apply with youth is that with children and adolescents, it can help them manage symptoms of trauma by teaching them to reframe their negative thoughts and build coping mechanisms to reduce their behavioral outbursts, right? So an example of this would be a child who experiences trauma might develop a belief like, I am unsafe, or I am too damaged to be loved. Okay, and so CBT is going to help this child recognize and challenge this thought and replace it with a more balanced perspective that promotes safety and confidence. So if Jana came to me and was like, Kelly, I'm unsafe, and she was sitting with me in my office, I would say, Jana, how true is that thought right now in my office? And Jana would say, well, not really right now. And I would say, okay, so what facts do we have to back up that is not true right now, right? So I would challenge that thought, but I would have Jana give me the answers. I wouldn't give Jana the answers, right? So I'm intrinsically motivating Jana to give me all the things to tell me that she's safe with me right here in the office. And what other facts can we say that she's safe? Okay, so I'm building that trust with Jana. I'm not telling her like, no, Jana, you're safe, right? You've come here, you're not in your environment, right? Like I'm not forcing answers, but I'm getting Jana to just kind of reframe some thoughts. Okay, so there's a case study in there on Alex for you guys to give you an example of challenging those negative thoughts, how to build healthier coping skills, and increase some self-efficacy. Okay. Questions about that one? Let me check my chat. Make sure I'm not missing anybody. Yes, thoughts aren't facts. Exactly. We're going to get into that, Diana. I have one for PTSD. Exactly. I have, yes. Okay, good. So then we have motivational interviewing. This is my favorite, and I literally do this with everybody in my life. Like you can use this with anybody. I do this with myself on a daily basis, okay? So motivational interviewing is a person-centered approach, and this strengthens an individual's motivation to change. And this is used especially in substance use treatment where ambivalence about change is common. You know, you're on the fence about wanting to make a change. And this is particularly good in the one we were talking about, like a have to versus a want to. Okay. So this one is so good because how would this link to trauma? How do you guys think this would be good with youth or linking to trauma? Any ideas? And this is a no judgment zone. We're all learning together here.
I think it would be helpful in helping them get in touch with the possibility that this could be trauma related and it can be fixed. They can change.
Yes, Karen, absolutely, right? And so this is so good because what we do with this is, and I have another case study in there for you guys on Jamie, right? To help them maybe reduce the substance use, okay? And help her explore her feelings and motivations around substance use. So we're not telling Jamie to stop using, right? Or telling her that it's bad. But if Jamie's saying like, oh, well, it's the only thing that helps me relax, for instance, okay? We approach Jamie in a non-judgmental manner. We open the dialogue for her. We validate her struggles. We reinforce that her feelings are understood. And then we explore her ambivalence, right? And so we reflect on both the pros and cons of her marijuana use. Okay, so we ask open-ended questions like, what do you like about using? What do you like about it? And what do you not like about it? Right? And so we allow Jamie to think critically about her choices and the long-term impacts. And so we elicit that change talk, right? So Jamie can then talk about her reasons for wanting change. Like, well, what I don't like about it is I don't want to lose my friends, right? Or I want to feel more in control. So she's got self-driven motivation that becomes the foundation of her decision to reduce her use, not us telling her to do it because she's going to be punished or whatever, because that'll be a short-term change then, not a long-term change because it's self-driven motivation. Is everybody with me on that? Okay. So we want our client to be the one that's making the decision, not us. Let's see, it doesn't remove connection, which threatens deeper use. Exactly. If what you know is all that you know, how do you know that change could be good, especially when change typically occurs stemming from whatever the latest crisis was? Right, Elizabeth, right? Because if you look at it, right, if we're using, right, and we're thinking about changing, that's uncomfortable. It's unknown, it's uncertain, even though it's going to lead to comfortable life. So we self-sabotage, we go back to what's comfortable because it's familiar. Even though we know the outcome that might not be good, it's familiar, even though it's going to lead to an uncomfortable life of substance use. So we're kind of helping them step into the uncertain, but we're supporting them while they do it. Exactly, Elizabeth. Okay. So this one is the one who talked to me about, let me go back up because I want to make sure that this Diana is the one that is for PTSD. Okay. So this one is the trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And this one is especially important, like Diana was saying, sometimes cognitive behavioral therapy is hard for PTSD. So this one is the one that is a specific adaptation of CBT that's designed to help children and adolescents process and recover from trauma. So this integrates elements of cognitive behavioral therapy with trauma-sensitive practices, and it creates a safe environment for exploring painful memories. So this one is especially effective for children who have experienced the severe trauma, helping them process memories in a supportive way, reduce trauma-related distress, and develop healthy coping skills. So an example linked to trauma, like Diana was talking about, is that for youth experiencing flashbacks or intrusive thoughts due to trauma or PTSD, this is going to provide the structured support to process these memories safely and reduce trauma symptoms like hypervigilance, emotional dysregulation. Okay? So this is where we need to get in a little bit deeper. Yes, Diana, please.
Yeah, so I forgot what it's called, the rapid eye movement.
EMDR?
Yes, EMDR.
Yeah.
Yes, that used with cognitive therapy I think is cool. But anyway, I was just wondering about EMDR. Do they use that in children?
They
or
do,
adolescents?
and that's actually falls under cognitive behavioral. So cognitive behavioral therapy is like the godfather of everything. And then under cognitive behavioral therapy is dialectical behavioral therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, and everything branching under. And then EMDR, which is eye movement desensitive reprocessing, falls under cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's especially used for PTSD, and they will use that in children. It's used very sensitively because they won't, like, it's used to, for everybody that's unfamiliar with it, it's used to bring a child back to the painful memory, and it'll ask them, how intense is your feeling, right, on a scale from 1 to 10. And so the kid will say, like, I'm at a 9, right? And then it'll say, so what's a really pleasant memory you've had? And they'll say, oh, when I was on the beach, you know, whatever. Okay. And so they'll try to, the eye movement, right? So they'll either do tapping or light or whatever, and then they'll reprocess that memory and they'll try to desensitize the trauma. And so over a course of sessions, they'll try to bring that 9 down to a 0 is the goal. Sometimes they'll maybe only get it down to a 2, 3, or 4. So when I work with children doing EMDR, if I do 3 or 4 sessions with the child and they're only getting down to a 7 or a 6, sometimes I'll move to blue light therapy. Sometimes I'll move to trauma focused cognitive. Sometimes I have to use a variety of therapies. But EMDR can be very effective, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, those triggers come up without you even know it's your reptilian brain. You can't stop those.
You
So,
can't.
I mean, yeah.
We're
So
born, Diana, we're born with the negative feedback loop, right?
Right.
And so we have, I mean, the research always changes, but we have 90 to 100,000 thoughts a day. And for a normal, you know, whatever's considered normal, for a normal person, right, 60,000 of those thoughts are negative. But for someone that has addiction or trauma, up to 80,000 of those thoughts can be negative. And for a child, their brain isn't fully developed until 25.
Right.
So their reptilian brain is going crazy, right? And so sometimes you have to use a variety of things for a child. But my thing with the child is I'm seeing so many children that come in and they're on all these psychotropic medications. And those psychotropic medications have side effects that are going to cause
Right.
you know, so I like to work with kids in a lot of these different areas to try to prevent all these medications when their brains aren't fully formed yet, right?
Right. So they could be probably more open to healing their brain before that too.
Exactly.
From the traumas.
Exactly.
Okay.
Great question, Diana. I hope I answered it for you.
You did. Thank you.
Okay. So with this, you have the trauma processing and gradual exposure. You have coping skills as substance use alternatives, and then you have parental involvement if possible, and environmental changes. Okay. And let me check my chat and make sure I didn't miss anybody, because I want to make sure I answer everybody's questions. Yes, empowering them. Absolutely, Karen, for sure. Right now, Anne, it says we have between 90 to 100,000 thoughts a day. And so the goal, because my business is resilience, the goal is they happen so automatically that we hardly have time to question them, let alone question the validity of our thoughts. So the goal is to be connected to ourselves enough to stop them and challenge the validity of them. Like, how true is this really? Like, how true is this thought really? Right? Which is really hard to do. Exactly, Elizabeth. Okay. So SAMHSA's definition of recovery, right, is recovery from mental disorders and substance use disorders is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful definition, but difficult to get to, right? So the framework that they give us is, here's the dimensions: health. So we want to overcome, for example, abstaining from alcohol, drugs, non-prescribed medications. We need a stable home. We need a purpose. There's our purpose, right? So maybe job, school, volunteering, creative endeavors, income, and then we need community. So how many of the kids that you work with have these dimensions of recovery? Do any of your children have all 4 of these? I just want maybe a couple, right? Maybe just a purpose, a home, right? Community. So we can be their mentors in trying to get this together, right? I looked at this and I'm like, oh, yeah, right. Okay. So community, maybe community, we need something. And community can look like just being a part of something. Okay. So when I get into this, I want to talk about harm reduction. And SAMHSA's definition of harm reduction is engaging directly with people who use drugs to prevent overdose, infectious disease, improve physical, mental, and social well-being, low barrier options for assessing healthcare, substance use, and mental health disorder treatment. Beautiful. Now, when we look at what harm reduction is in STRTPs, it's a set of principles or practices used to meet the needs of children with a focus on decreasing the negative impact of risky behaviors over time, rather than attempting to immediately eliminate them altogether. Okay? So we want holistic, empowering, non-judgmental, and transparent. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Kids know when you're not being honest with them. They know more than adults. Okay? So we want to do this over time. So I'm going to show another video. Actually, I'm going to let James show this video, or Donna. I'm not even going to try because we're on a roll right now. So I'm not going to mess it up. Lisa's like, please leave it to them. So I'm just going to sit back. Keep my hands
James,
up. the keyboard.
you got this, or would you like me to support?
James looks like he's on it.
Okay.
Sure, I'll grab
He
it.
always stays off mute. I'm like, James, talk to me, Goose.
He's silent but deadly.
I know.
Lahoma's like, this should be interesting. I'm here all day. Let me grab my popcorn.
While James is getting fired up, I just want to say it out loud. The engagement today is amazing.
Yes.
It's making for such a meaningful presentation. And
I
all of the
love it.
everything. Loving
Thank you.
it. Keep
Thank
it
you.
coming, team.
I wish I could go back and read all these comments.
I'll save them for you,
Okay.
Kelly. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. How we doing, Mr. Williams? Ebony, yes, come on in, quick like a bunny.
Miss Donna, are we gonna by any way get copies of the PowerPoint?
So I've been dropping them in the chat, and if you are unable to download them, once the webinar is posted on our website, they'll also be available to download off of our website. But I'll drop them again, and you can just click on it and download it to your laptop and then save it to your desktop. I'll do it right now. All right, James, I'm muting so you can show the video.
Just a little buffering coming right up.
Weird, it's taken. Donna, they were asking if they're gonna get the recording as well. Brianna was.
Yeah, so all of our recordings will be on our website. You will get a marketing email once it's up. And then you can go to our peer partner website under the RCFFP. And all of our past recordings for all the webinars that we've presented thus far are up and available to view. So it takes about a week and a half for marketing to get the webinar edit and post it. So we will follow up for sure and let you know when it's available. Oh,
Dang,
let's see if
what's
I
going on
can,
with the
let's see if I
video?
can rest James.
Okay. Yeah, it shouldn't take this long, but like Brianna said, it is
Mine's
Friday.
working. James, let me share screen.
All right, transferring over to you.
Right, here we go.
Please hear what I'm not saying. Don't be fooled by the face I wear, for I wear 1,000 masks, and none of them are me. Don't be fooled, for God's sake, don't be fooled. I give you the impression that I'm secure, that confidence is my name, and coolness my game, and that I need no one. But don't believe me. Beneath dwells the real me in confusion, in fear, in aloneness. That's why I create a mask to hide behind, to shield me from the glance that knows. But such a glance is precisely my salvation. That is, if it's followed by acceptance, if it's followed by love. It's the only thing that can liberate me from my own self-built prison walls. I'm afraid that deep down I'm nothing, and that I'm just no good, and that you will see this and reject me. And so begins the parade of masks. I idly chatter to you. I tell you everything that's really nothing, and nothing of what's everything, of what's crying within me. Please listen carefully and try to hear what I'm not saying. I'd really like to be genuine and spontaneous and me, but you've got to help me. You've got to hold out your hand. Each time you're kind and gentle and encouraging. Each time you try to understand, because you really care. My heart begins to grow wings. Very evil wings, but wings. With your sensitivity and sympathy and your power of understanding, you alone can release me from my shadow world of uncertainty, from my lonely prison. It will not be easy for you. The nearer you approach me, the blinder I may strike back. But I'm told that love is stronger than strong walls. And in this lies my hope, my only hope. Please try to beat down these walls with strong hands, but gentle hands. For a child is very sensitive. Who am I, you may wonder? I am someone you know very well. For I am every man you meet, and I am every woman you meet. And I am you also.
Okay. So powerful, huh? Oh, shoot, Adrian, you didn't see that? Bummer. I'll put the link for the videos in the chat.
They're also in the PowerPoint too. So
Oh,
I'll do this
good.
for you, Kelly. Don't worry. I got
Oh,
it.
good. Okay. Yeah, it kicked me in the teeth too, Donna, right? Yeah, it's very powerful. And Brianna, I'm 44 too, and I'm still figuring it out, right? It's an everyday process. And I wore so many masks and it was so exhausting, right? Just trying to get people to accept who I am. And I tell Donna all the time, I'm like, now I don't know how to be anybody else but me. Like if you Google my name and you watch, I'm the same person on this webinar as I am on my podcast, as I am in my book, as I am when I do trainings, as I am, because I had no integrity, I had no values, I had nothing in my addiction. And so now I don't know how to be anybody else but in my integrity and in my values. And I just live very free now, right? And so with our kids, you know, hear what they're not saying, especially the ones that have been through trauma and don't know how to communicate or are having outbursts or whatever. I'm going to talk about this because hear what I'm saying here, because it's hard to comprehend at first, but we're diagnosing coping mechanisms. So our kids' coping mechanisms are anger or outbursts or avoidance. That's how they cope, but that's what we're diagnosing. That's what we're diagnosing as obsessive or oppositional defiance disorder or this or that. We're diagnosing that, but we're suppressing valid symptoms. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So hear what they're not saying. So to understand behaviors and symptoms are responses to their trauma. Okay. So again, that trauma-informed response is to ask them not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. Okay. And so this next part is going to be really important. And let me make sure I'm not missing anybody in my chat. Yeah, when it's out of character. Yes. Okay. So let me pull up again. Come on, baby. Third time's the charm. Keep going. Keep going. Yes.
You got it, girl.
All right. So this is why it's so important to talk about empathy, okay? Because empathy in our profession is such a double-edged sword, right? Because none of us are in this profession for lack of empathy, but we also have to have our boundaries. But I want to talk about empathy when it comes to Carl Rogers believed that true empathy is always free of any evaluative or diagnostic quality. Okay. So the recipient or the kiddo is going to perceive this with some surprise. If I'm not being judged, perhaps I'm not so evil or abnormal as I thought. Right? Now, some people like a diagnosis. Some people are like, phew, I finally have a label. I finally know what the hell I have, right? Like, oh my God, finally. But some people don't want a label. Okay, so just be aware of that. And so Rogers understood that by identifying with another person's situation, we elicit the client's trust, which is crucial for motivating a client to want to change. So these ideas are consistent with the literature In fact, empathetic listening skills are deemed to be essential components of evidence-based training. Okay, so when we look at this, then it leads us into trust. So trust and rapport are the connective tissue for gaining and maintaining healthy relationships. And so I want to go into what language and behavior do we want to use that's going to avoid stigma. So my purpose, my own purpose, is to remove stigma from mental health and addiction so that nobody has to go through addiction alone and afraid like I did. That is my flippin' purpose, you guys. So here's what I have developed, how we talk to our kids to avoid that and create connection. So what language do we use to build a safe and supportive setting? Let's get to it. Let me check my chat. You guys are so engaged. I love you guys. Okay. My goodness gracious. Okay. Yes, non-judgmental presence gets through shame. Yes, I feel labels, especially with kids, can be more harmful than helpful. I agree with you 5,000%, Brianna. Labels allow one to research what connects with that label, then allow the person to say, yes, that is me, or no. Keep looking for another, yes. Some people like it, Elizabeth, right? Okay, so let's get to this. What can we use here? Non-stigmatizing language. So use first-person language. So instead of saying addict or alcoholic, we want to say a person with a substance use disorder. Why? Take yourselves off mute. Hit me up in the chat. Why do we want to say that?
Stigma.
Yes.
I just did my state exam. Thank you, Donna. I passed.
Yay, Ebony!
Thank you.
Whoop, whoop.
Congratulations, girl. I'm so proud of you. Awesome.
Yes. Okay, because it doesn't define them. Thank you, Meg. They're a person first, not their addiction. Yes, Jessica, right? Because yes, it acknowledges that they're more than their condition, right? It helps separate their identity from the disorder. Okay, yes, 100%. Okay, we want to avoid labeling or judgmental terms. So instead of saying junkie, clean, or dirty, we want to say person in recovery or person who uses substances. Why? Yes, Lorena, person-centered language. Brandon, they are both positive and negative labels, those that show more about who you are and what you're dealing with, and those that put you in a bucket with a lid that, Brandon, yes, that prevents you from moving past it. I'll always be a junkie versus I have a disorder and get recovery from it. There's more change talk. Boom. If I had 2 mics, I'd drop them, Brandon. Yes. Dignity. Yes, Ebony. Diana, hit me. Where are you at, Diana?
There we go. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. I was just saying that it's, or I was thinking that, like, to say junky or dirty, and it's like you're saying what intrinsically they are, while the other one is something that they have. It's something that they are dealing with instead of something that they are. So it's it's better to make change in behavior than to think that you had to change something wrong with you as a person.
Yes. Thank you, Diana. 100%. Ebony, dignity. Yeah, there's so much more than their addiction. Yes, Karen. Ask questions, Tina says. Yeah. Right? For individuals who are already struggling with their identity, telling them who they are is counterproductive. Boom, Meg. Our reaction brings us closer or further away from our children. Boom, Carla. No need to also demoralize someone. Yeah, Donna, right? And so when we use those judgmental terms, it implies that moral judgment, and it can make people feel dehumanized and less likely to seek help. Okay? Treat them like any other person. No judgment. They're a human being. All right? We want to use neutral language. Yeah, labels should only be used as a way to find out more. This is a simple way. Absolutely, Elizabeth. And so instead of saying experiencing a mental health challenge, or we want to say experiencing a mental health challenge instead of suffering from a mental illness. Why?
Then it makes us feel like all we do is suffer and we're not allowed to just live and be well because all we do is suffer or struggle.
Yes. Thank you, Brianna. Right? So words like suffering imply helplessness and no hope, right? They may reinforce negative stereotypes. So neutral language is going to be more empowering. Hope comes from being seen as a human, not the label. Yes, Christine. Okay, excellent. I am not a therapist and cannot diagnose. Hold on, my emojis got stuck. Hold on one second. Uh-oh. I'm not a therapist and cannot diagnose, but may be able to acknowledge someone is struggling. Yeah, Donna, you know, like people ask me all the time, you know, because I am a therapist, and I was always worried because A, I'm not married, and B, I don't have children. And so I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Right? I am an excellent therapist. You want to know why? I may not have a child, but I know what it feels like to be lonely. I know what it feels like to have a substance use disorder. So am I going to meet with someone and go, oh my God, I know exactly how you feel? I'm not going to say that, but I am going to say, I can't imagine what it must feel like for you to be going through this. And I know what it feels like to be alone and afraid. So tell me more about that. Use your empathy. Listen more than you talk. You can learn so much from observing a child in play therapy, what they're drawing, right? Yeah, it also doesn't allow you to build rapport. If a kid feels they're only being seen by their challenge or label, then why would they want to open up and share who they really are? Yeah, and I'm gonna actually get to that, Brianna, of what our kids are saying. Okay, people who gave me compassion and showed me my purpose did more for me than 100 conversations about how wrong I was. Brandon, 100%. It took me 3 rehabs, right? Because the first 2, that's all that they were doing, Brandon. And you did this wrong, and you did this wrong, and you've got court, and you've got this, and you've got this. And I'm like, I kept going lower and lower and lower, right? Until in my 3rd rehab, my counselor came over and was like, did you tell him about this? Did you get honest about this? Did you tell him this? And I was like, oh, and she's like, you're welcome. I saved your life. Now, you have a bachelor's degree. You need a master's degree. You need to get into school. You're talented in this. You're smart in this. And I was like, and I felt this small, but guess what? I walked up to that community college shaking. I got a free backpack and a Bic pencil, you know, because someone believed in me. And I sat there and all those young kids had laptops, and I sat in the back with my little Bic pencil, and I checked in with my counselor every day. She's like, keep going. You've got this. And it was so humbling. You're so welcome, Lorena. Thank you for being here. Right? But I had a purpose. And I went through my master's degree with an ankle monitor on, and I'd go up in my skirt, and everyone's like, your ankle monitor. And I'm like, oh, right. But I kept going, right? I had a purpose. So we want to avoid language that blames. So instead of saying failed treatment or relapsed, we want to use resumed use or had a setback. Why?
Hi, this is Maria Tia. I think it's those that words carry empowerment.
Yes.
Self-esteem to others and the hope.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I get, you know, when we use positive reaffirmation or wording, positive wording. I mean, I admire your journey, and it's just a beautiful story, and that gives me hope for my voice.
Maria, thank you so much. And Maria, I'm sorry, my ADHD is going a little nutty here, so I have a question. How do you get your water to move in the background on your screensaver?
I do not know. Don't ask me. I just did it and now it's there. Now I cannot take it. So I'm just not making nothing out of
You
It
need
is
to
just,
upgrade your Zoom, Kelly. It's an
Oh my
upgraded Zoom background.
God, it is mesmerizing, Maria. I am just, thank you for that bonus on the Friday. It makes me feel like I'm on vacay. Love it. Yes, Maria, you're absolutely right. So we want to avoid that because, yeah, instead of using those, terms like failed can make a person feel guilty or blameworthy. So language that describes the situation neutrally helps promote a sense of hope and ongoing recovery, right? And let me check my chat. I don't want to miss anybody. Yes. Empowerment we get from connection. You really have to be careful with words. Most people only hear 5% of what you say. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Donna. And then we want to focus on behaviors and not character. So instead of saying non-compliant, and I see this all the time, we want to say struggle to adhere to the treatment plan. Why?
I think one aspect of that is, or one outcome from that is that when you say struggle to adhere to the treatment plan, it's also saying, I still believe you can do this.
Yes. Thank you. Right? So this reduces the impression that someone's unwillingness to follow a plan is due to stubbornness or lack of character, right? And instead acknowledges that they have challenges that they're facing, right? We haven't given up hope. We've just hit maybe a road bump. Okay, yeah, it leaves the door open for recovery. It's not the finale. I love that, Christine. It's not the finale. Allows to seek why the plan is not working. It just may need a tweak. It may need some adjustment. 100%, Donna. One acknowledges the struggle. The other tightens the lid on the bucket. Brandon, I love your wording. You talk just like me. I love it. Doesn't blame them. Non-compliance is a judgment and assumption. I relapsed after 14 years and it felt like I lost it all. It was difficult to get back. You know what I always say about that, Diana? You lost the date. You didn't lose all the time and the knowledge and the recovery and everything. You just have a new date. You
Right.
know?
Right, but that's what the word relapse, when we're talking about the wording, that's what the word
Oh,
relapse
yes,
made it
yes.
feel like, like I failed, or
Right.
like it was like now all that was gone. That's what it felt like. But
Oh, perfect example. Yes, exactly. Exactly. 100%.
I know. I still have all that recovery in me.
You sure do. You sure do.
For sure.
And that's why I do this, because it makes people feel like, so excellent. And then I want to get into, so here's the example of reframed language, right? So instead of he's an addict, he is a person with a substance use disorder. Instead of she refuses to comply with her medication, she is finding it difficult to follow the medication regime. Instead of he had a dirty drug test, he had a positive drug screen. They're mentally ill. They are experiencing a mental health challenge. What are they going through, right? And you know what? And I'll be honest, when I first, because we don't see a ton of positive outcomes in substance use disorder, right? And so even me, when I'd wake up, I'm like, oh God, they have a dirty drug test again, but then I felt negative. And so when I started reframing my language, then I felt more positive about what I was doing. And then it bled over to my clients, and then they felt more positive, so you even feel more positive when you're using this language. You don't feel as drained working with this population. You know what I'm saying? So practice it. And then we have this non-stigmatizing behavior. And so we want to practice empathy and active listening. So use empathetic statements like, I understand this might be very difficult for you, or I'm here to support you. Why is this important with this population?
That they keep their hope and that they feel like they feel the worthiness and don't lose all of that. If you're willing to pour your time and effort in, then they must be worth something somewhere at some level.
Yes, Karen, right? So empathy shows that you value, like you said, Karen, the person's experience. It encourages trust and openness. It reduces stigma by reinforcing they're not alone in their struggle. You know, I knew that there was lots of other people going through what I was going through, but I felt like I was the only one going through what I was going through, right? Yeah, Tina, most they feel alone, right? Lets them know they're not alone in this. We'll walk alongside them. Yes, everyone, boom. Yeah, you guys all hit it with me. Okay. We want to respect the autonomy and empowerment. So we want to allow individuals to make decisions about their own treatment. So we want to say, what do you think would work best for you, rather than giving prescriptive commands? Because who is the expert in their own recovery or substance use disorder?
They are.
They are. Sorry, my Italian's coming out. I'm like, "Rah, rah." Yes, they are, Brianna, not us. Okay. Okay, so yeah, everyone. So why is this important to respect their autonomy and empowerment? Who have they been giving, or what, I should say, have they been giving their power away to in their substance use disorder? Have they been in their power? No, Diana's giving me a big head shake, right? And so with that being said, yeah, the substance. Absolutely, Elizabeth. No question mark. Stand in your confidence. You had the right answer. So with that, right, we want to have them not feel powerless. So this approach empowers the person, emphasizes their ability to make choices, which helps reduce those feelings of powerlessness associated with that stigma. Okay? Yeah, Diana, please.
Yeah, I think that it says something for the way we're internally dealing with it. Like, it's really not up to us. It's not, if they do good, it wouldn't be because of, like, it would be their accomplishment. And
Yes.
just to remember that we're looking for them to have their accomplishment,
That
and their
motivated
power.
interviewing, that intrinsic, they may, yes.
Like,
right?
I don't, because I can take my pride into it and try and make them do, and then that's a horrible thing. I'm just saying.
Transference, right? Like we're
Right,
transferring our experience
right.
onto them. 100%. Yeah, absolutely, Diana. Great point. Let me check my things. It's book and have write it. It's about their success, not our ego. Yes. How do you deal with someone who quits the substance but never does the immersion? That's hard, Elizabeth, right? Like that dry drunk, or you're not doing the emotional work. And to me, getting sober for me was the easy part. It's dealing with your emotions and staying sober and learning how to deal with life was the hard part, right? So that's really difficult, because for me, I have to pay rent on my recovery every day, right? I have to wake up and make that conscious choice not to drink or use. And I'm gonna share right now. The reason I didn't do my webinar the first time when it was scheduled, because my sponsor committed suicide after 30 years. And it's really difficult, and Donna's provided me complete support, because I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the webinar and I'm going to share with everybody. And Donna's like, you don't need to be the hero, right? Like, you need to take time. And I was confused and I was mad and I was sad. And we're still waiting for the toxicology on her. And I couldn't figure out why she did it after 30 years. And but dealing with that, right? The emotional work, like how do I stay clean? I didn't want to drink or use, but I didn't want to deal with my feelings, right? And so what things do I need to do for myself every day to make sure that I stay spiritually fit? I needed to do a thorough house cleaning. I needed to do step work. I needed to be by myself. Then I needed to call my other sponsor in AA. She flew out from Louisiana. You know, how do you deal with those things? And so if you're not doing your emotional work, you can be just as sick as you were in your substance use disorder. And so all of these things would need to apply, just like that video. You still love them, but how do you keep yourself safe at the same time? Right? And so I'm still working through things. And so what I do is I talk about it. I need to get everything in, because if I have any sick secrets in here, so I call my mom every day. Okay, I'm hurting today. I call my sponsor. Okay, I'm hurting today. What do I need to do? So I need to keep myself talking about it out loud. Because if I internalize, I get in trouble. Yeah, Donna.
I think a big part of this too is for those of us who can support, to lean in and do it. I love, Kelly, that you brought up that, because Kelly wanted to be the hero. She absolutely wanted to stick to the schedule and do the webinar. And we were like, no, ma'am, absolutely not. And I literally had to push Kelly to not present the next day and allow her to take the time. And it took about a 15-minute phone call before Kelly said, okay. And I think it's also really important that, you know, if we are in sobriety and we know what we need to do, but also when we see others struggling, to push and draw that line for others, and to allow them to take the time that they need, and allow them to say, hold on, you don't need to be the hero. I think that's a very important piece of supporting those in recovery and supporting those who are struggling, is leaning in and stepping in and noticing when someone may need to take a break or take a step back. It's so important. And I didn't want to call you out, Kelly, but it was important, because you were like, I'm here, I can do it. And I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah. And I think it goes to the point of the question that was asked, like, how do we deal with people who aren't doing the emotional work, you know? And it is about drawing good boundaries. You know, I think it relates, because I needed to do the emotional work at that point, you know? And so Donna drew a boundary with me, like, nope, right? Like, you need to go do your stuff, because I think all of us want to fix and help. That's in our innate, having this lived experience can be a double-edged sword for all of us, because we see it. We have the innate ability, you know, I think we're almost more innate to see it than people that get a master's degree or a doctorate in addiction and whatever. I think people with lived experience, and that's just my personal experience, personal opinion, when we see it, we're like, oh, right? Like, we want to, and we have to have really good boundaries with people that aren't doing the emotional work, and say, I'm here for you. I love you. We use this non-stigmatizing language. We use the behavior, but we also have to have a very good boundary. We can plant seeds. My whole family is in addiction. So I was the black sheep of my family in my addiction, and I'm the black sheep of my family now in recovery, right? And so we have to have really good boundaries. We can still use all of these tools, but again, it is their choice. People told me till their face was blue to get help, and until I was ready and made that choice, it's not going to happen. And I'm so grateful Donna drew that boundary with me, because I needed to go do my work to get in the space that I'm in now. And Brianna, you are absolutely right. Died by suicide. Thank you. Thank you. I'm still working around my how to say it correctly, because it's such a
It's raw.
It's raw.
It's raw.
So so I hope that answered your question about quitting the substance, but we keep loving them. We keep planting the seeds, and it's going to be their choice, you know, and sometimes I slip into it, and I'll be honest, you know, sometimes I slip into it, you know, when I get frustrated or overwhelmed and I'm walking to the kitchen and I don't know why I walked there and this and that. And it's my self-awareness and consciousness that's like, I need a day, you know, and I'll take a day and I'll get back into my spirituality or whatever I need, right? So let me check my time because I want to make sure that okay, good. So we want to avoid our assumptions and stereotypes. So instead of assuming that a person with substance use comes from a troubled background, which sometimes we do, we want to approach each individual with an open mind. And why do we want to do that? Ebony, hit me.
I would say the answer to that would be to make sure that we put aside our own personal biases.
Yes, Ebony, absolutely. So it is very important that we do this because it perpetuates stigma, like you said. And so treating each person as an individual with unique experiences, it's not a one and done. Donnae's experience isn't going to be the same as Karen's, isn't going to be the same as Ebony's, isn't going to be the same as Brianna's. So it avoids reinforcing those harmful assumptions. Yes, Erin, everybody isn't the same. Yes, Elizabeth, because addiction is totally random. It crosses those sociological boundaries across class, race, all of it. Okay.
Oh,
so
really quick, ma'am, I just had to think of it. An implicit bias we sometimes aren't even aware of, correct?
I just did the research on this, Ebony. Thank you for asking because I love research. 90 to 95 people feel that they are self-aware and they are not when it comes to implicit bias. I had a little ego death on that, Ebony. I'm like, I think I'm a pretty self-aware person, right? And so I put in your packet, because I knew we weren't going to get time to it, about cultural awareness. And so you have a whole thing in your packet about cultural awareness, what it is, how it affects bias, and then I gave a case study on what it would look like. I believe it's on Malik. His name is Malik. So it gives you an example of what that looks like, okay? So I want to get to these last two before we end today. We want to use nonverbal cues because 80% of our language is nonverbal. And so we want to maintain open body language, make appropriate eye contact, and avoid crossing your arms or turning away. Why is this important? And this all sounds obvious, you guys, but you would not believe how much I see this. Great question, Elizabeth. Has anyone met the 5% or are self-aware about bias? And can you introduce me to them if you have, Elizabeth? So we want to do this because this helps convey respect and openness.
Also,
which are, oh, hit me,
a
Karen.
sense of safety.
So important. Thank you, Karen. Karen, your voice needs to be on a meditation app. Have you
sure?
called that before?
No, but I have been asked to read books.
I know. I
Like,
see.
when I put this book on however, electronic, whatever, I want you to do it. It's like, okay.
I know. You have a very soothing voice. Yeah, it shows that safety, right? And we want to normalize self-seeking behavior. So we want to use statements like, it's common for people to need support at times, and reaching out is a sign of strength. Because what is addiction seen as? Is it seen as a strength in our society? And is vulnerability seen as a strength in our society?
No.
No, and it should be, because vulnerability is your greatest sign of strength, right? And so it leads to believing you don't care. Yeah, Tina. And so normalizing seeking help and framing it positively can reduce the shame people might feel when assessing mental health or substance use services. When I wanted to get help, that phone weighed 1,000,000 flipping pounds, right? And so I just want to end on Donna, is it about me ending or did you have a question? Because
no, you're going to keep going. I'm just going to let everyone know that James is going to be dropping the evaluation link right now. So please fill it out as Kelly is finishing up with our last 9 minutes. We didn't have to stop for a Q&A because you have had amazing participation and interaction today. But please, please, please fill out those evaluation links. Kelly, don't click it, because if you click that X, it's going to disappear. You can move it, just don't exit
And
out.
minimize it.
You can minimize it, just
I'll
don't
just
click
move it
the
over.
X.
I'll just move it over.
Yeah.
If I touch anything right now, it's gonna probably click out.
Girl, it happens all the time. Please take a moment to fill out those evaluations. We do read them. We do follow up. We do appreciate what you liked. Any ways that we can add any upgrades to these. So please take the time. And just before Kelly, you finish up, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. I know I have appreciated, and so has the rest of the group. So off you go. Keep going.
Wonderful. No, I just wanted to end with, because I promised Brianna I would, is that this is right out of the mouths of our children. So what they wish adults knew and how they wish adults would support them is that what do you think the answer was? Sorry, before I give you the answer, what do you think the answer was? What they wish adults knew and how they wish adults would support them. What do you think our kids' answer was? Yes, Ebony, listening, right? So they said, listen to them and validate how they feel. So it might not make sense to you, right? But this is what the kids were saying, is that this is what they're hearing from adults. They're telling them what they should have done, what they shouldn't have done, what they would have done. This is coming from the adults. The adults are telling them, this is what I would have done. This is what you should have done. This is what I would have done, or what they failed to do. Instead of hearing them, right? So 75% of kids do not tell a trusted adult when they are struggling with these issues, because they only hear, I have the answers, I have the life experience. So we need to learn, yes, being heard. So they need to learn through people's experiences, listen and validate our kids. So I want you guys to ask yourselves, like, am I a good listener? So we don't want to interject. We want to put our cell phones away. We want to listen to what they say. And here's the difference. We are not validating their behavior. We are just validating how they feel. You know, because I work with so many people and they're, well, the kids are leaving the STRPs and they're going to smoke weed at the park and da-da. It's like, okay, but then they're coming back and you're like, well, why'd you do that? I wouldn't have gone to the park. You should have been in group. We are not validating them going to the park and smoking marijuana. We are just validating how they feel. What were you feeling that made you feel like you needed to go to the park and smoke marijuana? You see what I'm saying? Okay. So if a child is experiencing substance use, you're not validating the behavior or actions, you're validating how they feel. By doing this, they can calm down and talk to you and feel safe. You can then calm down and start working on a resolution much quicker and more effectively. Okay? All right. I just had to get that piece out because that was really important. Okay. So I will share a little piece of myself with you to end. So as Donna had said, I started as a critical care nurse. I thought that was my purpose. I thought that's what I was going to do the rest of my life. I loved it. I broke my back nursing. Gosh, back in 2000 something, 2004 maybe. And the spinal surgeon that operated on me, who was my colleague, had brain cancer, and he didn't know he had brain cancer. And he severed an artery in my back, and I woke up from my back surgery paralyzed from the waist down. And I was 26 years old, 27 years old, and I lost my purpose. And so I was sitting in a wheelchair at my parents' house on their front porch, and nobody wanted to operate on me because I was so young and I was paralyzed from the waist down. So they found me a doctor in San Francisco, and he was called the Doctor of Last Resort. Literally, that was his title. And he had operated on people like Joe Montana. And he's like, we can do these experimental surgeries I'm not sure if they're going to work. And my parents were like, F no. And I was like, F yes. Like, I'm not going to sit in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, right? So they did 8 experimental spinal surgeries on me, and I won't go into details of those because, you know, you guys are about to have lunch. And I did walk again. And but through those 8 spinal surgeries, I developed my severe substance use disorder and made very poor choices in my addiction and landed in Chowchilla. And that is where I found my life purpose. So we were in our cells for 23 hours a day, and we were out for 1. And everybody in there was in there for substance use or mental health disorder. And when I was in there, I was judging my cellmate because she was in there for first-degree murder. And I was like, well, I am only in here for DUIs, and you are in here for murder. And my higher power, whichever you want to call it for yourselves, spoke to me and said, if you would have hit a child or a family, you would be in here the same amount of time. So what makes you think you're any better? And so I called my sponsor, God rest her soul, and asked her to send me all my recovery material. And for that hour on the yard, I started taking those women through recovery steps. And because I was going to get my freedom, I said, I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life doing this work. And I have. So that's when I got out and started, finished my rehab and started my master's program on an ankle monitor, and I have been doing this work. So you can find your purpose anywhere. These kids can find their purpose anywhere. But because my sponsor believed in me, and because those counselors and therapists believed in me, I became one. And now I am a coach, and I dedicate my whole life, Donna knows, doing this work. So be that mentor for our kids. Learn about this. 30 minutes a day, research. You know, who is the latest person doing research on addiction? What is the latest trauma-informed care? What is the latest first-person language I can use with my kids? How can I use my lived experience? And this is what I did, you guys. I just started sharing my story online. Got my ankle monitor off today. I got my Intoxilock out of my car today. And because nobody talks about it, because there's so much shame and stigma, people loved it. And so they said, do you want to start doing a podcast about it? Yeah. Do you want to write a book about it? Yeah. And I've built my whole career on my life story. So share yourself with others, right? Share yourself, share your story. Take all you might have about your addiction and make it your greatest gift to the world, because that is what I have done. And be a mentor for these kids. Show them what connection is. Connect them with community and make a difference. And thank you for what you do. I cannot thank you enough. We are a tribe, and I love each and every one of you, and thank you for being here.